Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. You are strong, right? That was the first question I asked myself when I heard her laughter echo through our hallway. Laughter that used to belong to me. For years, I thought of her laugh as a warm breeze rolling through our home. I would catch the tone of it in the living room, drifting in from the kitchen, or floating out through the front porch in the summertime. But now, hearing it again, it felt strange, like I was standing in the wrong house altogether. Her name is Jessica. We've been married for what feels like a lifetime, and an instant all at once. I remember how her laughter reeled me in during those college years. Carefree, full of hope, with some hidden edge of ambition behind it. That same laughter, the one I once called mine, has taken on a different texture, more guarded, but still bright. It's the kind of laugh she used to let slip when I'd tease her about anything, from how she'd burn scrambled eggs to how she sang off-key in the shower. Now, though, it spills out of her in a quick burst, not because of me. Because of him. I'm a man who fixes cars for a living. A mechanic by trade, part owner of a small auto repair shop in suburban Dallas. I'm the kind of guy who likes practical solutions. I learned to troubleshoot early. Whether it was an old transmission or a busted water heater, I'd get in there and make it work. Maybe that's what love was for me. You keep it well oiled, tighten the screws when they come loose, and trust it'll endure. But people aren't machines, are they? Sometimes you can't just swap out a piece or realign a chassis. Sometimes it's the intangible that breaks, the cracks invisible until everything collapses. I remember the first sign something was off. Jessica started dressing differently. Just subtle at first. New workout clothes, a more polished style, an eagerness to go out alone on Saturday mornings. "I'm meeting a friend," she'd say, her tone breezy, eyes shining. I told myself it was nothing. She's finding new hobbies, I assured myself. People can have their own interests. Meanwhile, I kept wearing my father's silver chain, the one I found in his drawer after he passed away 2 years back. It had no cross or inscription, just a plain loop of metal that felt like a quiet anchor around my neck. I didn't know I needed something to ground me. Not until I realized I was floating adrift in a marriage that had started to vanish beneath me. I used to see her as the center of my life. Jessica is a strong woman, never one to back down from a challenge. I think that's part of what drew me to her. But the same unstoppable spark that lit up her eyes now guided her to find new thrills, new corners of the world that didn't involve me. At some point, her laughter shifted direction. It was no longer traveling toward me, but instead funneling itself toward a man with a confident grin and a convenient sense of humor. "Dan Johnson," she told me one afternoon, as if I'd asked for an introduction. "He's training me at the gym. He's a former military guy. Real disciplined. He's funny." Funny. I tried to keep my voice even, my face neutral. But inside, my gut twisted. Me, of all people, feeling threatened by that casual word. Funny. Jessica nodded, fiddling with her new water bottle. The kind with a built-in filter. "Yeah. He makes me feel, I don't know, seen. That stuck like a piece of glass in my mind. Had I become a ghost in my own home? Or the kind of wallpaper you stop noticing after a while? Men hate admitting weakness. At least I do. But hearing her say that one word cut me open. There's a certain brand of loneliness that creeps into a marriage over time. An ache you can't name because it's not supposed to happen when you're still living under the same roof, sharing the same bed. Except it does. It's a silent emptiness, like walking through an empty house while the lights are all on. And so, the first time I truly understood that she was slipping away was when I found a text message on her phone by accident. I'd reached over to move it from the couch, so our son wouldn't accidentally sit on it. The screen lit up, Dan's name, a winking emoji, something about meeting up that night. That's it. Just an invitation. But I could practically hear the subtext. Private workouts, inside jokes, and that laughter. The one she was giving away so freely to him. I told myself to stay calm. I'm not a talkative guy, And I sure as hell don't like to throw accusations around like confetti. Instead, I did what I always do. I collected evidence. Quietly, patiently. The same way I'd methodically check a car's engine for every drip of oil. I watched her eyes when she texted him. The slight upturn of her lips, the fleeting glow on her face. I checked the bank statements, small charges at a smoothie place near the gym. And I bided my time. The next day, my neighbor Dave, who'd lived down the block for years, sent me a picture via text. No words, just an image. Jessica's car parked outside a small one-story house 3 streets over, time-stamped midday. We both knew she was supposed to be at work then. Dave didn't add commentary. He didn't need to. The context was painfully clear. I felt an odd wave of black humor swirling in my chest. I kept thinking how I once teased Dave about being a busybody, always posting pictures of suspicious vehicles on our neighborhood watch forum. Now, ironically, I was grateful for his watchful camera. That evening, she laughed in the kitchen, stirring a pot of tomato sauce. I stood in the doorway, arms folded over my chest. "You're in a mood," I said quietly. She shrugged, and I washed her shoulders. I thought about how I used to kiss the back of her neck, how that spot would make her giggle. Now that spot felt off-limits, claimed by someone else's breath. Even her laughter sounded different, like she was letting out a secret she didn't want me to catch. The chain around my neck felt heavier, as if it tightened with each passing day. She tried to draw me into a conversation about weekend plans. Maybe we could see that new movie. I heard it's pretty good. Or I could invite my sister for a cookout. Her voice rose and fell, her eyes watching me to see if I'd take the bait. I merely nodded, forcing a polite smile. If she noticed how stiff it was, she didn't mention it. Or maybe she was relieved I didn't push. That night, I lay in bed beside her, hearing her soft breathing. My eyes locked on the ceiling. I pictured Jessica with him. Dan, a man with a wide grin, a fit body, a confident stride. I envisioned them sharing jokes, the kind that only 2 lovers understand. I felt a flicker of anger, followed by a wave of something else. An emptiness, maybe. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity. There I was, clutching to the chain like a relic while everything else slipped through my fingers. When she finally drifted off, I snuck into the bathroom and stared at my reflection. I'm not a bad-looking guy. Broad shoulders, strong arms from years of manual labor. Maybe a few wrinkles forming around my hazel eyes, a bit of gray creeping into my hairline. But I still recognized the man in the mirror, the man who wanted nothing more than to be a good husband, a good father. My father's chain glinted under the harsh fluorescent light, and a question coursed through my mind. What if the child you love so much isn't even yours? It's the kind of doubt that sinks its claws into you, refusing to let go. I wanted to believe that, even if Jessica was straying, that part of our family was still mine. Our son is 8, too young to see the rifts forming, or so I hoped. Yet I caught him glancing between us, confusion clouding his innocent eyes when Jessica would step out to grab groceries in the evening and come back smelling like fresh cologne that wasn't mine. I tried confronting her indirectly, hinting that I knew more than I let on. "Jess, you've been out late a lot lately. Everything okay at work?" I asked. She gave me a puzzled look, then plastered on a smile so sweet it made my teeth ache. "It's just a busy season," she said. "Lots of client meetings." I could smell the lie on her breath. The tension simmered beneath my polite nod, but I didn't explode. I didn't even raise my voice. Every fiber in my being wanted to revert to raw anger, to lash out, but an odd calm settled in me, like an Arctic freeze. For the first time in my life, I discovered a new kind of strength in holding back. I was the quiet observer, collecting every little thread until I could tie the final knot. The affair crystallized before my eyes one afternoon. I came home early, my shift at the garage cut short, because the part I needed didn't arrive. The house was eerily quiet. Jessica's car was in the driveway, but all the lights were off. I stepped inside, heart pounding so loud it threatened to echo off the walls. That's when I heard them. Soft murmurs behind our closed bedroom door. A giggle that was hers, but different, huskier, laced with an unfamiliar intimacy. My stomach lurched. For a split second, I thought about turning around and walking out, pretending I never heard it. But I couldn't. Call it masochistic curiosity or something deeper, but I had to know. I pushed the door open. And there they were, Jessica tangled in the sheets with Dan, her hair fanned out across my pillow, his broad, muscular arm wrapped around her waist. I caught only a glimpse of bare skin, the moment stolen by the swirl of bed covers. Jessica's eyes flew wide, a gasp ripping from her lips. Dan scrambled upright, that soldier reflex kicking in. He quickly pulled on part of his workout shorts, as if modesty mattered now. Jessica yanked up the sheet to cover herself. The entire scene lasted maybe 5 seconds, but it felt like slow motion, my mind capturing every detail in perfect clarity. I expected to rage, to shout, to tackle them. But instead there was a calm so dense it was almost paralyzing. I looked at Jessica. She looked back, her lips parted, face flushed. Neither of us spoke. Dan broke the silence. "Look, man," he began, but no words followed. I simply turned around and walked out. The chain around my neck felt like a hot brand scorching into my collarbone. My father's legacy pressing me to be a better man than the brute who would fly into a fit of violence. Instead, I heard my wife's shaky exhale, and then her whispered voice. Maybe my name, maybe just a sound. I didn't bother to wait. From that point on, we lived in a quiet war zone. The next few days tested me in ways I didn't know I could endure. She wanted to talk about it. I refused. She apologized, sometimes through tears, sometimes with anger. Each time, I found a reason to leave the room or busy myself with a half-finished project. She tried to defend herself. It just happened. "We're having trouble, you and me. I didn't know how to tell you." The words tumbled out in broken confessions, and I'd stand there with a wry grin, the kind that feels like your face is cracking. My version of black humor was to whisper, "You should have left a note on the fridge," as if that would have made it simpler. She cried then, but I felt nothing, just a hollow ache. I started sleeping on the couch. Our son would find me in the morning, blinking in confusion. He'd ask if I'd been watching TV too late. I'd nod, ruffle his hair, and pretend everything was normal. Another day, another lie. Jessica, pale and teary-eyed, would offer me coffee. I'd wave it off, or sometimes I'd take it without a word, neither acceptance nor refusal. She'd try to fill the silence, but I gave her nothing. She told me once that Dan made her feel alive, in a way I no longer did. I almost laughed at the absurdity. Here I was, the one still breathing in the stench of betrayal, and she was calling me lifeless. Yet something in me refused to lash out verbally. I was waiting, storing that energy. I had a plan. Or maybe it was a coping mechanism that men use when we're too afraid to face the immediate devastation. I ordered a paternity test kit, the kind you can do at home, secretly. Not because I wanted to suspect the worst, but because my rational side needed the truth. Even if it gutted me, I had to know. I waited until our son was fast asleep on the couch one evening, drifting off to a cartoon's soft glow. I gently swabbed the inside of his cheek. He stirred a bit but didn't wake. There was no drama, no conflict. I put the swab in the sample tube and sent it off, the way I'd mail any package. It felt methodical, like renewing my driver's license or filing taxes. Part of me wanted to scream. If I were half the man my father was, I'd never let it get this far. But here I was, following directions on a plastic kit, because a lifetime of trust had been shattered in my own bedroom. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of tension so thick it choked every room. Jessica kept trying to apologize, to tell me it wasn't ongoing, that she was just caught in a moment. I remained silent. She asked me if I wanted to leave. I told her, calmly, "We'll see." That's all. She stared at me like I was a locked door, desperately searching for a key. Every night, I found myself replaying that image of her with Dan, the golden sunlight drifting through our curtains, highlighting the curve of her shoulder. A beauty I once possessed, now shared with a man who thought he could waltz into my life without consequence. Sometimes, I'd catch myself smiling at the absurdity. "This is what I get for trusting too hard," I'd mutter under my breath. My black humor crept in, mocking me from the corners of my mind. Even at the shop, I'd zone out mid-oil change, picturing them tangled up in sweaty sheets, that same primal closeness that used to be mine. When the test results finally arrived, I opened the envelope while sitting in my pickup truck. I'd parked outside my old high school, the one where I used to play football. The same field where I taught my boy how to run, how to catch a pass. My hand shook, but not too much. I pulled out the paper, scanning the lines of text. The conclusion was stark. The child I'd raised and loved for 8 years was not mine by blood. Another man's DNA shaped him, a man I didn't even know. It could have been Dan, or maybe some other ghost from Jessica's past. The paper didn't specify. All it told me was that my father's chain around my neck had lost the hair it was meant for. I stared at those test results, expecting tears. Instead, I felt an eerie calm settle over me again. Maybe I was too broken to react. Maybe shock does that to a man. I stared at the football field. I remembered the day I cheered on my son during a casual father-son game. I could almost see him there, a little boy in a too large helmet, running with all the speed his short legs could muster. I'd felt pure pride then, a father's unstoppable love. Even now, that feeling lingered. Blood or not, I still saw him as my kid. But Jessica had robbed us both of a certain truth. She'd burdened an innocent boy with a lie before he could even speak his first word. That night, I returned home with the envelope in my jacket pocket. Jessica was in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of wine. She offered me one, her voice trembling. "We could talk," she said, her eyes searching mine. I shook my head, just a slight movement that told her she wasn't going to get the conversation she wanted. She swallowed hard. "Mike, please. We need to address what happened." "We will," I said, in a tone so quiet it scared even me. I set my keys on the counter, locked eyes with her. She shifted uncomfortably, the glass rattling against the countertop. Still, she took charge of the dialogue, the way she always did. "I never wanted to hurt you. I felt so disconnected. You were distant, and I was lonely. And then Dan was just funny." I cut in. A thin smile tugged at my lips, my black humor making another appearance. "He made you laugh." She exhaled sharply. "It's not just laughter, Mike. He listened to me. He saw me." She trailed off, noticing the envelope I was slowly pulling out of my pocket. Her eyes flicked from it to me. "Read it," I said, 2 simple words, spoken without fanfare. Her face drained of color. She placed the wine aside and slipped the paper from the envelope, scanning the lines. It took a few seconds, but I watched her face crumble. Her breath caught in her throat. "Oh God," she whispered. "Mike." I waited, my arms at my sides, the chain heavy at my throat. 1,000 emotions brewed behind my eyes, but I kept them locked away. Jessica's lips trembled, and tears welled up. "I was scared," she managed to say. "I didn't know how to tell you or when. It was just one time, I swear. A mistake. I should have told you." I nodded, because it's all I could do. Then I quietly said, "Now you be brave. You sit him down. You tell him whose blood he carries. You break what you broke out loud. No more secrets. If you don't, you lose him for good. And me." She opened her mouth to protest, but no sound came out. Her eyes pleaded with me for mercy, for understanding. All I could offer was the chain around my neck, the last relic of my father's trust. I unclasped it, feeling the metal slip across my skin. Then I set it down on the table next to her wine glass. She stared at it, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mike, Please, she whispered, voice cracking. Please, just don't go. Let's talk about this. I took a step back, near the doorway. Did you ever talk to me before you brought him into our bed? I asked softly, an edge of bitterness lacing my words. She closed her eyes, tears escaping. My voice trembled with anger I struggled to contain. You destroyed everything. Now live in this. And then I walked out. I heard her sob once, a choked sound that might have been my name, might have been a prayer, but I didn't look back. My father's chain stayed behind with her, resting on our scratched-up kitchen table. It was the last gift I could give her, a burden of memory she'd have to face every day. I left the house without slamming the door. I went to my truck, fired up the engine, and drove. It was late, the stars overhead mocking me with their cold brightness. I felt a pang in my chest, a heaviness that made it hard to breathe. But part of me also felt a strange sense of relief. The final card was on the table. My father used to say, "Son, some things can't be fixed. They can only be faced." I faced it, in my own quiet way. I drove aimlessly for a while, letting the road stretch ahead. City lights bowled into darkness as I veered onto the interstate, not sure where I was going. My mind flicked through random memories. Jessica's laugh at our wedding. The day she told me she was pregnant. The nights we cuddled on the couch watching old sitcoms. Then the images twisted. Her laughter with Dan. The guilt in her eyes. The bed I found them in. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The line between love and hate can be so thin, it's almost transparent. At some point, I pulled into an all-night diner. The place was nearly empty, a few neon lights flickering by the windows. The waitress, a young woman with tired eyes, brought me coffee without me asking. One whiff told me it was old and burnt, but I sipped it anyway. Maybe I needed something bitter to remind me I was still alive. Rough night, she ventured, her voice neutral, a little sympathetic. I glanced at her name tag, Lauren. I swallowed a sarcastic laugh. Yeah, you could say that. She nodded and vanished behind the counter, leaving me alone with my swirling thoughts. I rubbed my neck, noticing how light it felt without the chain. That piece of silver had been a comfort, a reminder of the man I wanted to be. Now Jessica had it, whether she wanted it or not. I realized I could have kept it, but it felt right to leave it behind, like severing a cord that tied me to a lie. In the hush of the diner, I let myself think about what to do next. The chain reaction had already started. Jessica's going to have to explain to our son why his father might not be his father. She'll have to figure out how to handle Dan, or whoever else. Maybe it was him all along. Maybe she was lying about that too. A swirl of bitterness coiled in my stomach, but I forced it down. My father taught me pride. But this situation taught me humility, the kind that makes a man realize he can't salvage every broken part. One day at a time, I told myself. The question was, did I want to fight for Jessica? Or was this betrayal too large, too final? The test results in my pocket weighed on me like a tombstone, marking the death of life as I knew it. The next morning, my phone buzzed with messages from Jessica. I ignored them. Then came calls. I let them ring out. By noon, I'd parked behind my auto shop and leaned against the hood of a battered sit-in waiting for repairs. My buddy and co-owner, Carlos, ambled over, giving me a weird look. "You good?" he asked, scanning my face. I shrugged. Define good. He studied me for a second. Want to talk about it? No, I said simply. If I opened my mouth, the floodgates might break. I was still wearing my father's old work jacket, the chain no longer beneath it. It felt strange. Carlos must have noticed, but didn't push. Instead, he offered a half-sympathetic nod and walked back inside. He always knew when to leave me alone. That was the day I discovered the odd power of silence. My father once taught me that men show strength with their words, but sometimes I think real strength comes when we choose not to speak. Instead, We let our actions, our decisions, do the talking. In that silence, I found a twisted sense of confidence. I wouldn't let her keep lying to me or to our son. I'd force her to come clean. That evening, I drove to the house at dusk. Jessica sat on the front steps, hugging herself in the chilled Texas air. She looked up when my headlights swept across the driveway. She rushed toward the driver's side as soon as I parked, tears brimming. I rolled down the window slightly, just enough to talk without letting her grab hold of me. She began, breathless. "He's your son in every way that matters." I cut her off, shaking my head. "Stop. Don't feed me that line. You're going to sit him down and tell him the truth. That's the only way forward." She stifled a sob, nodding. "I will, I promise. Just come inside, please." I slipped out of the truck, stepping past her into the house. We stood in the living room, the same place we used to decorate for Christmas, used to celebrate birthdays. The air felt stale. Jessica's eyes darted to the chain on the table. She hadn't moved it from where I'd left it. Our son was in his room, headphones on, playing some video game. Jessica and I faced each other. Finally, she took a shaky breath. "I'll tell him now." "Good." She walked down the hall, beckoning me to follow. I trailed behind, heart pounding. Our son looked up, pulled the headset off. "Mom, Dad?" he said, confusion painting his young features. Jessica swallowed, glancing at me for support. I gave her a curt nod. She began to speak in a trembling voice, explaining bits and pieces that no child should have to hear. I listened, silent, arms folded across my chest, my face stern. My son's eyes widened. He looked from her to me, tears threatening. "What does this mean?" he asked, voice quavering. I swallowed hard. "It means," I said softly, "that we love you, no matter what. But sometimes grown-ups mess up, and the truth has to come out." Jessica sobbed, reaching for him. The confusion and hurt on his face tore at me more than anything else. Part of me wanted to scoop him up, shield him from all this. But the damage was done. Sometimes you can't unsee the dent once it's hammered into your life. He stared at Jessica for a long moment, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. Then he looked at me. "Do I call you Dad?" Something inside me shattered. I crouched down, placed my hands on his shoulders. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "I'm still here for you if you want me." My voice nearly broke. That was the closest I came to letting my emotions show. Jessica wept quietly in the background, her body trembling with silent sobs. Our son blinked up at me, tears gathering. Then he nodded, letting me pull him into a hug. Over his shoulder, I caught Jessica's eye. She mouthed, "I'm sorry." I tightened my hold on him, wanting to block everything else out. Eventually, he pulled away and sank onto his bed, head lowered. Jessica touched his hair. "We'll figure this out," she said in a trembling whisper. "I promise." That night, I slept on the couch again. Only this time I felt no illusions about what came next. The marriage was a house with a rotted foundation. Could we rebuild? Possibly. But the cost, the willingness, had to come from both of us. And I wasn't sure if I had it in me anymore. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps. Jessica appeared at the edge of the living room in a long t-shirt, eyes puffy from crying. "Mike," she began, voice thick with emotion. I don't want to talk tonight." I cut her off. "Go to bed." She lingered there, tears fresh, but I didn't move. Eventually, she slipped away, and I heard the bedroom door close. I stared at the blank TV screen, thinking about Dad's chain on that table, a silent witness to everything that had collapsed in our life. In the days that followed, the air in the house was suffocating. Jessica tried to keep her promise, being honest, no more lies. But the tension between us was so sharp it felt like walking barefoot on broken glass. She'd attempt normal conversation over breakfast. I'd nod or give one-syllable answers, my mind playing that same horrible reel. Her and Dan, the bed, The test results. Meanwhile, our boy hovered close, afraid to break the fragile peace. I hated that he had to carry the weight of our mistakes. My black humor surfaced in the oddest ways. One morning, she asked if I wanted scrambled eggs. I caught myself thinking, she's probably better at scrambling secrets than eggs. The thought almost made me chuckle. But then I pictured how broken we were, and any humor died in my throat. I realized a bizarre truth. Sometimes the worst thing isn't betrayal, it's the indifference that follows. The way the love just drains out, replaced by a numb acceptance that this is your life now. Jessica tried to explain her side again. I felt alone. You were always so quiet, so distant. I just wanted to feel seen. I finished for her, my voice flat. She swallowed, nodding. And now, you feel seen. She looked at me with haunted eyes. I feel lost. I almost pitied her. Almost. But I remembered all those nights I lay awake, feeling like a ghost under my own roof. The final confrontation came on a chilly Sunday evening, 2 weeks after I'd made her tell our son the truth. She tried to approach me again, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, she kept repeating. I never wanted to destroy our family. I inhaled slowly. But you did. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. Dan reached out, she said hesitantly. He wants to talk, to see if we can. My glare cut her short. He wants to do what? My voice was low, deadly. It was the first time I truly allowed anger to spark in my tone. She took a step back, her face crumpling. He wants closure to figure out. I barked a laugh, short and bitter. Closure. Right. Well, that's up to you. But as far as I'm concerned, he has no place here. She trembled, trying to keep herself together. But what if he's his father, biologically? My stomach twisted. Then you can figure out custody arrangements. I'm done. A stunned silence filled the space between us. She stared at me with pleading eyes. Don't say that, Mike. You can't just walk away from everything we built. I gritted my teeth, my hands balling into fists at my sides. What exactly did we build, Jess? A house of cards. The life built on a lie. She tried to speak, but tears overwhelmed her. She reached out, brushing her hand against my cheek, a tender gesture that once might have calmed me. Now it felt like an intrusion. I turned my face away. I walked over to the table, picking up the chain I'd left behind. I turned it over in my hands, feeling the weight of it. Then I set it down again, carefully. That's yours now, I said in a voice that shook with barely contained fury and sorrow. A reminder of what you broke. She let out a choked sob. Mike, please. We can heal. We can. I cut her off one last time, my voice vibrating with raw pain. You destroyed everything. Now, live in this. I marched to the front door and yanked it open. The cool night air rushed in, chilling my heated face. As I stepped out, she whimpered my name. I paused on the threshold, turning just enough to glance over my shoulder. Don't hurt him more than you already have, I said quietly, referring to our boy. Then I closed the door behind me, feeling an odd mixture of heartbreak and release. I left for a motel on the edge of town. The next few days, I made arrangements. I spoke with a lawyer, sorted out potential custody issues, braced myself for the financial burden. I refused to speak to Jessica beyond logistical matters. Our son was the only reason I'd pick up the phone. She cried, apologized, tried to reason. I said little, letting her words fall flat against the new wall I'd built around my heart. In the background, I imagined Dan lurking. I wondered if she'd kept seeing him. Part of me wanted to confront him, to demand answers. But I realized I didn't care enough to bother. My father's voice echoed in my mind. Pride is a double-edged sword. Perhaps I was letting my pride run wild. Or maybe I was finally standing up for the dignity I'd lost. I told my boy that I wasn't leaving him, that I was always a call away. I'd take him out for ice cream on weekends, if that's what he wanted. He cried and asked me to come home. I couldn't promise him that. Maybe I'd never be able to. But I did promise I'd never abandon him entirely, blood or not. The paternal bond might be severed by a piece of paper, but love transcends DNA. Weeks turned into months. Jessica tried to salvage our marriage, but I remained unyielding. I found a certain power in letting go, a power I never discovered in all my years of patching up mechanical breakdowns. People break differently than cars. A marriage can't always be tuned back into shape after it's run off the road. Sometimes it's totaled. I saw her once more, at a supermarket. She looked hollow, as though she'd aged 10 years. She tried to speak, but I gave her a curt nod, and kept walking, pushing my cart toward the exit. Outside, I paused to steady my breath. A flicker of black humor hit me. Well, I guess that's closure, after all. I stared at the sky, exhaled, and climbed into my truck. The seat felt emptier without the chain pressing against my collarbone, but I didn't regret leaving it. Some burdens needed to stay with her. I thought about that chain often. It might still be on our old kitchen table, or maybe she tucked it in a drawer somewhere, hoping to forget. But she won't forget. Neither of us will. The echo of her laughter, the betrayal that cut me open, and the child we both love despite the blood that divides us. That's our story now, a dark tapestry of male weakness and reborn strength. I used to fear that acknowledging my pain would make me less of a man. Instead, I've realized it shapes me into a man who can survive heartbreak without losing his moral center. The me who used to see her as my entire universe is gone. In his place stands someone quieter, scared, but in a strange way, freer. My father's lessons on integrity burn bright in my mind, reminding me that truth, once revealed, can't be buried again. I no longer ask myself if I'm strong. I know I am. But it's not the brute force of a man swinging fists or hurling accusations. It's the measured determination of a man who's weathered betrayal and come out the other side, breathing and alive, if still bruised. The scar will remain, etched across my heart, reminding me that love can be a fragile illusion. But the choice to keep going is mine. These days, I work, I sleep, I see my son, and I carry on. Some folks might call it survival. I call it living. No grand gestures, no dramatic epilogues. Just day after day, forging a new path. I might not wear my father's chain anymore, but I carry the memory of it in the set of my shoulders, in the calm confidence of silence when empty words would do more harm than good. And that is how my story ends for now. No neat bow, no guaranteed happily ever after. Just a man with empty hands and a spine straightened by grief. A man who once believed in unwavering fidelity, now learning to believe in himself. A man who sees the worst thing about betrayal isn't the betrayal itself, but the indifference that follows. Because in the absence of illusions, I found a clarity I never had before. If she wants to cling to that chain as a symbol of what she destroyed, let her. I don't need it anymore. My father's legacy runs deeper than a piece of metal. It's in the quiet dignity I discovered while my world fell apart. Sometimes, ironically, that's the only way we find our true strength. You are strong, right? I guess the answer is yes. Even when your wife's laughter no longer belongs to you. Even when the child you raised shares someone else's DNA. Even when your greatest fears crawl out into the open air. You learn that being a man isn't about winning every fight. It's about facing the fight head-on, even when victory means letting go. Especially then. So let her keep the chain, and the silence. I'm walking forward, one step at a time, no longer asking for her laughter. I have my own voice now, and if that means standing alone in the aftermath, so be it. I'd rather stand alone in truth than lie beside someone in a bed of deceit. That's the last gift my father gave me, more powerful than any chain could ever be. And I'll carry it until my final breath.